Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And thank you to everyone for your great presentations. We'll now move on to a Q&A session for all the speakers from this panel. And first up, I'll ask a question kind of geared towards everyone. Can you share a little more about your work in engaging with other departments, agencies, and organizations, kind of some of that collaborative work that you do? If someone in the audience was interested in starting, this kind of effort around indoor air quality or heat or health, who would you recommend, they might talk to at their own organizations?
I can start being the person who's done the least. Um, is I kind of think that I viewed a lot of what I do as like being a master of all trade. What is it? Master of none. Like I tend to be very like willing to sit in meetings, hear what people are considering their challenges and kind of identify like 1,000-foot view how to bring to people together, like being a facilitator and bringing folks together. And I think that it's about like meeting a lot of folks, shaking hands and identifying where people are already doing work, how that work can be scaled and supported, and then really how it can focus on the issues you find. So it's like I think it's different for every single jurisdiction where there's energy, and it's about being nimble and having a million conversations and kind of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, like finding your champion, like from the health department, we had Michael Kent, who recently retired, which has been a big loss for us, and trying to find a new champion in the health department to take on the roles. He kind of was always involved and interested in what our planning and building department was doing and our energy efficiency programs. So connecting with them, I mean, he was go above and beyond in terms of getting low income clients to fill out our weatherization energy efficiency program applications. He'd follow up with them more than our weatherization staff did, like getting those clients the help they needed. And it just that's what you want to try to get to. And when you lose that person, then you're going back to the drawing. Okay, well, who are the people in the administration we can connect with? What meetings can we attend? So we're that all over again.
For us at the Air District, we were coordinating this project, so it was working with our partners that was most important. Kelly and I do both sit in the Planning and Climate Protection Division, so we also get to interact with other planners, but it's mostly our partners that we worked with.
Yeah, I think for us at the state level, I think one of the silver linings I think that came out of the COVID pandemic was there was, I think, an acknowledgement that we need to be talking to one another and working with one another more. So there have been various efforts that I've been a part of at CDPH to sort of convene interagency meetings to, at a minimum, sort of like share updates and research and information on projects. But I think a longer term goal of that is to try to coordinate our work related to indoor air quality at a much greater extent. As I tried to describe, it's something that has to be coordinated from a design all the way through an enforcement sort of process to be done well.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. It's awesome to see kind of the progression from local to up to regional and state entities here. So this question was directed towards Kyle. Has your research looked at overfiltration? This person's school district increased air filtration during COVID and added air quality monitors. They found that they were over cleaning and it was wasting energy and money.
Yes, definitely. There is a sweet spot to be had in terms of filtration, and I think what we see is that the higher you go, it's sort of reduced returns on investment. So there's definitely a sweet spot to be had from a filtration point of view. Definitely. Um, the one thing that I would say is I think the area, if we're looking at ventilation and filtration, where I think the area where there could be some more work done is on more on the ventilation side. So how much actual outdoor air we're getting into buildings as opposed to the filtration piece. But that's definitely a important question, and I agree that you know, with what the person is asking.
Great, thank you. This question was towards Damien, and I believe you answered it in the Q&A function, but I just wanted to elevate it in this this Q&A session. For any ideas, if you had tenants that experience rent increases or evictions or any other hassles or challenges after participation in the program. I know, you know, we think about that a lot in the energy and electrification standpoint for renters. So I wanted to bring that up here in this Q&A.
Yeah, we don't have enough data to tell us like what happened. I mean, it was only like 12 clients that had their you know, their buildings retrofitted. We didn't have the ability to follow up with them to check to see if, but it is quite a group that does move around a lot. And what we're learning is that even throughout the process of doing the assessments, there were several clients that like moved halfway through and we couldn't complete, we couldn't complete the projects because of that. So it's an interesting dynamic as we were actually implementing the project. Granted, there were lots of delays with our implementation, which probably caused some of that too. So from our perspective, like just in general, wanting a tighter timeline for implementation across the board. And then, but we never received any phone calls or any complaints from any tenants that, hey, my rent went up because of this. So that's a good thing.
We had a lot of discussions about that in our partner meetings, and the thought was that there wasn't a lot that could be done. There was discussion of having the landlords sign something to say they wouldn't raise the rent, but it wouldn't be enforceable. I don't know if anybody's had any better success. It looks like no.
Right. Um, for Sally and Kelly, did Bahi evaluate whether gas furnaces and water heaters were ventilated properly? This kind of expands on some of the conversations we had in the first panel also.
The emphasis was on the kitchen and bathroom ventilation, and there was really no discussion about monitoring the other appliances.
Got it. And could you talk a little bit more about the measures for the kitchen and bathroom that Bahi utilized? Do you have a sense which were most effective?
We don't have enough data yet, I would have to say, because a lot of the measures are being completed this quarter, and so we'll get that data hopefully within a few weeks.
Great. Well, looking forward to seeing those reports and the updates coming out. This question could be for anyone. Is there a single organization or agency that you all know of that might be taking the lead, kind of in that collaborative effort in convening, all of us, CBOs, nonprofits, funders, government organizations that are helping to map the landscape of health, asthma, heat, and indoor air quality, green building, climate, kind of all of these interrelated topics?
I'm not sure who can convene all the different program areas, but if helpful, we were working with Alameda County Asthma Start. I know that's focused on asthma and health, but they were participating in our program and a huge partner. And we were working on these multiple issues, but again, we were convening, and I don't know who can convene after, but maybe others who have a better idea of the landscape know other organizations may be better fit to convene those areas in Alameda.
Yeah, we haven't explored it much further than what we've done at the county level. We're doing it in other contexts, similar to what you're saying. I haven't gotten to that place on the health and asthma and health outcomes portion. I'd like to see more coordination, actually bringing in beyond what you just said, but bringing in like the private like health plans and like Kaiser or somebody who like there could be a major benefit to the asthma education and energy efficiency and having homes being retrofit through health plans on a broader scale and conversation on that. So that's something we'd like to explore.
Just to echo what Damien said, we initially looked at like CalAIM asthma adoption as like an opportunity to kind of expand this. So I think that there's an opportunity to engage health plans to like support this through their asthma work. Is like how can they layer that on other benefits that already exist for weatherization, knowing that there's overlap there.
Great. Thanks, everyone. For Kyle, what is the indoor regulatory equivalent to the Clean Air Act? Is it energy codes or something else?
Yeah, so I think it's a tough question to answer because we don't really have the equivalent of that. I think it ends up being a sort of patchwork of, what's going to influence it is, what are the minimum outdoor air ventilation rates that are required by code, in the building that we're talking about. If that building was built 2 decades ago, that's going to be very different than what's required of a new building. And the reality is in both buildings, no one is really enforcing that that's the case. So I think we have a sort of yeah, patchwork, but not a real like coherent, well-resourced way of dealing with this problem. Whereas, as you sort of alluded to, I think there's been a lot of effort and attention and research on outdoor air and pollution, and we haven't seen the sort of requisite level, I think, of effort put into indoor air, even though paradoxically we're spending much more time in indoor environments. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've got a couple more minutes left, so I just wanted to put out a question to everyone also. Can you talk about funding sources for these types of efforts? Maybe funding that you've used in the past, what types of funding efforts you might look to for future work, on this kind of tumultuous funding landscape we have now. It's a big question on everyone's mind. So if you can speak to that.
I can start. I mean, I think there's sort of two ways of approaching this problem. We could have a much more coherent regulatory framework and one that is more strongly enforced, which I'm definitely in support of and advocate. But fundamentally, I think at the root cause, at least, of what my presentation talked about is I think it's really an infrastructure problem. The newer buildings, I'm not that worried about. It's mainly the older buildings. So we have to figure out ways to subsidize or incentivize like the modernization of buildings. And I think that there were real efforts in terms of like the Inflation Reduction Act, and at the state level, there was a program called CalShape, which you may have heard of, which put a bunch of money aside for ventilation upgrades in schools. So programs like that are important. Given the current landscape, I think we may have to much more rely on the idea of like incentives to get operators or districts to make these changes themselves if it's favorably economically to do so, maybe more than usual. But it's a tricky problem, so I don't really have a good answer. But I think we can point to some pieces of legislation in the past that I think have been positive.
Yeah, I'll just add like the hook is really for the health plans is the making the case for reduced emergency visits related to health in general. So if we can make the case with the connection on the energy efficiency, in which our business plan does, and then we can say, hey, are you interested, health plan, in investing not just in the client itself, but the client's environment around them, which is their home that they're in all the time? Can we reduce asthma? Can we, and then leverage funding that has an interest in that, which is their district has been helpful with ours. So, you know, can we improve indoor air quality? Who has an interest in funding that kind of stuff? So putting those together and then finding that third source of funding that's kind of outside your typical energy efficiency funding. And then here's the interest in the funding on the health side for those gap measures that really need to happen to fix the infrastructure in the home, which is usually mold remediation. It's usually like roof repair, like it's already been listed in this form already, and getting those things addressed and panel upgrades. Like if you want to do building electrification or all electric buildings and get that natural gas out of the house, that's going to be huge for mitigating asthma, particularly for children with asthma. So, you know, educating the community about those benefits too is a huge part of this too.
Mhm. To be realistic, like in the current funding landscape, it's going to be kind of difficult. But I think one of the things I think about is that, kind of echoing what Damien said, is we know there's money for mold remediation. We know there's some money for asthma mitigation. We know there's some money for lead. And how do we use those opportunities to cross promote each program? We know that there's likely overlap between the same homes that need a lot of different work. We know that the better we're at able to cross promote, you know, there's less, like, we don't have to rip up a home over and over and over again in different programs. So I think that there's an opportunity to like really band together in this space to make sure that we're not to make our money like go better. But I'm not sure if I've cracked the nut on how to fund a lot of this stuff. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we are just a couple minutes away from 12 o'clock today. So huge thank you to all of you for coming and taking the time to present, and much appreciated. I will pass things back to Kellen to close us out for the day.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you to all the speakers. I really enjoyed the discussion. I'd be remiss to not mention that the BayREN is currently working on a new single family program. Well, we've been working on it, but it's about to launch, which will serve middle income households, single family renters included, that will cover a lot of this stuff: weatherization, insulation, and some home repair work. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I personally work on that program and am thinking about how we can connect that to some of our health efforts in Marin County. But yeah, more to come on that later. But yeah, so everybody who's still here, please, when you get a couple minutes, please take our survey. This helps us make improvements to these forums. And we're going to be raffling off a cool solar battery charger for folks that complete the surveys. So you can check that out there. We'll also be sending that out to everybody's emails who registered and attended. So yeah, I think that's it. We're almost at 12. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. And thanks again to our speakers and for the BayREN folks for coordinating this wonderful forum today. All right, everybody stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.